Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Fan Fuel here. I'm your host, Nathan, and this is Colton Cranmore. And we have a special guest tonight. This is Turnpike. We brought him on because we needed somebody to kind of fill the void that Alex left for us, and same with Jared. Both of them are here tonight. So we wanted to get their opinions on some things. It's been a really busy week in terms of motorsports. We're going to start off with some open wheel free agency craziness. So, first of all, I want to start with IndyCar. We heard that Callum Ilott extended for Juncos and Rinus VeeKay is still a free agent. So, Turnpike, what do you think about that?
First off, howdy, pleasure to be here. Second off, I really like Rinus VeeKay. Maybe it's just that Dutch driver thing that I'm just kind of into. But I think he's had good results. I mean, you can't fault him. I think he's driving perfectly fine. He's not a guy going out there causing, numerous accidents, tearing up equipment. So I really like him. I like Callum Ilott too. I liked him in F2. So I'd prefer to see both of them back, personally.
Yeah,
so.
I'm pretty happy too. I mean, I was surprised at Callum Ilott because I know that he was good in F2. Some people thought that he was faster than Schumacher was, and I was kind of interested to see him in IndyCar because I didn't know a lot about him, and he's really impressed me this season. Like, it's obviously he's not on the best team, so to see him show out like he has is pretty cool. And same for VeeKay, because I think that it's important for other teams than just Ganassi or Penske to do well. I feel like having a good ECR car is really important for the series.
Yeah, I would tend to agree.
Yeah, I think it's just better because the parity is there, and I think the more guys that are willing to build up a midfield team, I think the better it is for the series. I mean, it's maybe not better for them, but I think it's better for us.
Yeah, I would agree. I kind of feel that IndyCar is starting to get a little bit of an identity as a holding series. So you've got people like Cal and F2, and we're good, good enough. That really didn't have rides available or anything of that sort. Hey, we got a place for you in IndyCar, and I think that the strength of the Formula Euro ladder is so strong that those guys can immediately come over here, hop in IndyCar, and provide a lot of technical help because they've been around it so much. They can drive the snot out of a race car, and they can help midfield teams start to build that program because they're going to have a driver advantage, and that's going to show.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that we're in a good spot for IndyCar, and I can't be more excited for the future because I think that if you were a fan before or right after reunification, there were some pretty lean times in terms of drivers. So, I mean, as much as I want to see American guys get in there, I think it's good for the sport because we're getting so many quality drivers that just couldn't go to F1.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So, great point.
Yeah. And another thing when it comes to open wheel is we're not even to the tip of the iceberg yet. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, we're at the tip of the iceberg because there's a lot more to go. If you've been following F1 news this week, I mean, it's been crazy. First of all, we had Vettel announce his retirement last week on a Wednesday, and then just a little bit after Hungary ended, we found out that Alonso is going to join Aston Martin next year, and it was pretty much a foregone conclusion that Oscar Piastri was going to take his seat, but things happened. He was announced to Alpine. A couple hours later, he says, I was not announced for Alpine. I'm not signing this contract, and now it's just a mess. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that and where you think he's going to wind up next year.
One, that is a Chad move. What a big baller move to come out and be like, no, I'm not driving for you. Like, no. And that, I think that shows that he's probably got some good offers, at least somewhere else, because to publicly turn down a Formula One seat, especially, there's only 20 seats to begin with. To turn one of those down is pretty brutal, all things considered.
I mean,
I think, of course, the writing on the wall is probably McLaren. It's looking like McLaren, and I'm sure we'll talk about McLaren a little bit here in a little bit. But yeah, I don't know if I would pick McLaren over Alpine at the moment. I mean, they've both underperformed this year. I mean, McLaren definitely has. McLaren's fallen off a cliff.
Way
Of course, they were okay last year. I would consider them best of the rest last year, but this year they're just another midfield. I mean, Daniel Ricciardo struggled, Lando's struggled all right, but I don't know if I would consider that a huge upgrade over Alpine,
Yeah,
however you
I
prefer to
wouldn't
say it. I
either.
say
I
Alpine.
mean, in terms of car performance, I feel like the Alpine's kind of right there. I think that McLaren has more resources, yes, but at the same time, it's not resources aren't everything. So I'm interested to
Yeah,
see whether or not Piastri really has a guaranteed seat in McLaren because someone did say that Ricardo has the option himself to end that contract, and
yeah.
the only way that they could kick him out is to literally pay out his expensive contract, which is probably at least $15 million, maybe more.
Yeah. That is kind of weird because I mean, they could do that, but if we're just going ahead and talking about McLaren, McLaren is in a really weird situation where it's a good situation to have. They have more professional drivers than they have seats. I mean, look at the McLaren pipeline. Right now you've got Daniel Ricciardo, Lando Norris, IndyCar, Pato O'Ward, and Felix Rosenquist. I would consider, as much as I love Felix Rosenquist, I would say he's probably the weakest of their lineup. No,
Yeah, he's
I
not
don't
even
think
that
anything
weak.
bad of him. I just think that the lowest, there has to be someone on the lowest bit of that podium, and that is him. But it just shows
Yeah.
that how incredible everyone else is. And then you've got Palou coming eventually once that gets settled. You've got probably Piastri. I mean, they have just bought out the entire driver market. Maybe that's
Yeah,
their
it's
strategy. We
crazy.
might not have the best car, but you're not going to have any drivers. So fair enough.
Yeah, I'm impressed. I feel like it's really interesting because I thought for sure that it would be an in and out thing with Alpine, Alonso, and
Yeah.
Piastri. But from what I heard, there was a source saying that Alonso's management team knew that the deal for Piastri expired on the 31st of July. So it sounds more or less like he purposefully waited to sign that deal so that he would pretty much just cause a
Nice.
complete like circus when it comes to Alpine's driver market because obviously it's been pretty well known that he and Otmar Zafnauer don't necessarily see eye to eye. Even if they don't publicly disagree, they just don't. There's something there that seems like they don't get along.
I mean, he basically did to Alpine what Otmar did to Aston Martin, you know. So I can't
Yeah.
really fault either of them. They're kind of 1-to-1 now. But I know it's a tough situation. It's not a situation that I strive to be a part of.
No.
Let them get that all settled on their own. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out in the coming weeks, months, and year at this point.
Yeah, I was impressed also with the deal rumors of Aston Martin with Alonso. It seems like he has an option for up to 4 years, and he has this option to end the deal whenever he wants. So he's getting a massive pay raise,
Nice.
and he pretty much just gets to drive for as long as he wants. So the fact that him at 41 years old was able to talk a team into doing that, that's a pretty good win for him.
Man's the Tom Brady of Formula One.
Yeah,
play as
I
long
mean,
as
I
he
just
wants.
hope he has a good car because I've been an Alonso fan for like my entire childhood, so I don't want to deal with any more suffering than I already have.
Nice. I mean,
Also,
I think
go ahead.
if he gets a win, he might call it. If he gets one
I would
last
too,
win
Tyler.
somehow,
Yeah.
yeah,
Like,
get
at what
one
point-
last win and dip.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, he could go to IndyCar. I would rather him go to IndyCar as soon as
That'd
he
be
wins
cool.
one more race because I feel like he's
Son,
got a
that
better
packet.
chance of winning every week.
Oh,
You know, he's still got other races.
I would tend to
out
agree.
there.
I'd love to see him in IndyCar. That would be so cool.
I mean, you saw what happened when Nigel Mansell went to IndyCar. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
think it's out of the realm that he could win the title.
Fernando Alonso to the 10,
That would be pretty
replacing
cool.
Palou.
That would be amazing.
That would be pretty dope. Could you imagine Fernando
Yeah.
Alonso, Jimmy Johnson on the same team? That would be pretty baller.
Yeah, that almost actually happened. I think in 2020, before COVID happened, McLaren talked to, I think Jenson Button was supposed to run Road America. Obviously,
Yeah.
Alonso ran Indy, and then I think Johnson was in the running, but obviously he had NASCAR commitments and couldn't do it.
Yeah. Crazy stuff.
And also, one more thing about F1 is that Colton pointed this out in the private chat, but Logan Sargent's making his FP1 debut this October in COTA. So it's going to be kind of cool to have an American driver on American soil. So this has got to be the first time since Rossi, I'd imagine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 2015.
Yeah, it
Which
won't
is
be a
ironic.
race, but it's a start.
It's ironic that this got announced right after Rossi won his first race in like 3 years.
Yeah. I'm excited for that because I'm sure you've heard the name Dalton Sargent before in Truck Series.
Yep.
That's his brother. I think he's the first American to win an FIA karting title since Lake Speed back in the 70s. So
yeah,
Logan
Lake
Sargent's
Speed beat Ayrton Senna.
Yeah. Like it's a big deal for somebody from America to make it this far. It's not really common anymore. I mean, I know guys like Newgarden and Herta went to Europe, but they came right back. So he's the only one that really sticked it out, it seems like.
It'll be cool. My
we'll
brother's
see. Herta has another
that
chance.
Race.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to. I just can't. It stinks, but I just can't right now. COTA and Indy 500 are on my bucket list currently. So
yeah, I would love to, like you said, I would love it, but another thing with the so we've got Logan Sargent, we've got Oscar Piastri, we've got all these things going on with F1 next year, and that doesn't even begin to cover where Daniel Ricciardo winds up next year. You know, does he do one more year for McLaren, or is he to go back to Alpine? Like, who knows?
At this point, it depends on how Daniel feels. If he feels like he's got the short end of the stick, he might choose to leave. If he feels like, well, I've still got this option, this might be my best chance to win a race before I'm, probably done. It just depends on what headspace Daniel's in. Because, I mean, I don't think that car has race-winning speed or anything, but, I mean, anything can happen.
Yeah, it's been pretty weird to watch last year. I know that the car doesn't fit the way he drives, but I mean,
doesn't fit the way Lando drives either, apparently.
Yeah, it doesn't either, and he's able to adapt to it. I think it's just a matter of adaptation, and I think it's pretty clear now that it's not a really good relationship on either side of the team. I don't think they trust one another, and I feel like in the sense of doing one more year, it wouldn't work for either of them because it's kind of just prolonged torture, if you will. I think, like Turnpike said earlier, Alpine is such a similar car to McLaren performance-wise, but it drives totally differently. So he could probably go back there and do a lot better just because the car fits the way it drives.
Yeah, that could be a great move for him. Of course, I haven't studied his driving style enough, or in general of anybody's, to be able to be like, oh yeah, they would love that car. But
yeah, I don't either. But I heard that.
Yeah,
I just
that
heard
would be
that
interesting. I'm not against it. So
I wouldn't be either.
Definitely not against
he did really good in 2020 for Renault, so I wouldn't be shocked if he were to move and instantly see an upgrade.
Yeah, see a couple more shoeies.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. And I guess now that we've kind of got through most of the big F1 news, and I'm sure it's not going to be over. There's an entire summer break left, and probably won't be boring in terms of silly season. So I think while we're going to be on the lookout for more of it, I think we're going to have to move on to NASCAR now. For starters, we had a doubleheader at the Indy Road Course for Xfinity and Cup, and we also had trucks at IRP, which was a pretty big deal. So I want to start with the trucks at IRP. I'm not sure if you guys all saw it, but it looks like John Hunter Nemechek completely dumped Taylor Gray out of his first win on a green-white checker. So
100%. He definitely did.
Yeah. I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that one, too, before we get into local jokes.
Go ahead, Colton.
Go ahead, Turnpike.
Yeah.
Oh, you want me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Terrible move. I like John Hunter. I think he's fantastic. He's a great dude. Just a boneheaded moment. I guess it's like, dude, I understand racing hard for the win, whatever. I am very unapologetic of have at it. They will police themselves. But it doesn't hurt any less that you took the first win away from a kid with rookie stripes. I mean, he was in the lead for that race. And there you went and did that, and you didn't even win the race. So there is that point. So
yeah.
bad news, but yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Colton.
So we all say and we all hear that the truck race has lost all respect and it's just climbing up the ranks into the Cup Series and Xfinity. And I guarantee the second John Hunter gets run over again, he's going to bitch about the lack of respect, even though he just showed Taylor Gray absolutely none. Didn't try to pass him cleanly, just completely fenced him and called it good. And ruined his own day and chance to win the race at the same time. So, I mean, completely boneheaded move by JHN. I mean, I get it. If you're racing with sharks, you kind of got to act like one, but I would have liked to have seen more respect for the competitor after, in that situation.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I mean, like you said, of course it's IRP. It's hard to pass. The bottom's got less banking, so it's going to happen. But it's just you would think you would know that and not just send it in there. It's like, well, it's not going to stick, but I just want to do it either way. It seems like there's no more conceding in today's NASCAR. Back in, maybe back 5 years ago, if you don't have a chance at getting the guy, like, you know what, this is fine. I've tried all I can. I'm not going to take the guy out. Whereas now it's like, well, I don't really care if the other guy's wrecked. I'm not going to yield at all. Like, even though I have no chance of passing him clean, I'm not going to yield the corner. It just seems like there's a lot more lack of respect. And I think that it's a little bit sad, but like you said, trucks have the problem. And I don't even think it's just trucks anymore.
Right. Yeah, it's every series, and it's becoming more and more apparent as we keep going. Like Drew said, almost all of the big truck guys were complete assholes. Like, I don't think I saw Matt Crafton running into anyone, but I wouldn't be surprised if we just missed it on the broadcast.
Yeah, and we saw Carson Hocevar. I mean, he right-reared somebody.
Yeah, what the fuck was that?
I don't know.
He got into him coming out of the corner. Slightly overreaction, I think.
Yeah, I think it was just talk about in the moment, like.
When it says almost all of the big truck guys, does that apply to Haley Deegan?
Yeah, I mean, she's had her fair share of moments in K&N at least. I don't know if you remember how she raced down there, but
here's the thing is I have to toe the line in where I feel about this stuff because I am very pro, beating and banging, bumping and, aggressive, super aggressive driving. So right. I like that, but I think there is a difference between being really in somebody for 15th. Personally, right. I'm okay with both of those. I just think that, I don't know. It's just weird. I have to toe a weird line in my stance on that of like, yeah, I hate when Joey Logano bumped William Byron out of the way. That's fine. But I'm also not going to say anything about it if William Byron had RKO'd him into the wall the next week. That's just kind of how I feel about these things. So do unto others as you'd be done too.
But anyways, now that we've kind of got the preface out of the way, let's move on to the Indy Road Course. We're going to start our Woke or Joke series, which is definitely our most popular segment on our podcast so far. So we're going to start off with the Turn 1 restarts. It's been a big topic, obviously, but we've had so many messes. I mean, the initial start, a bunch of restarts. We had guys going 8 wide at one point. So I want to get your thoughts on this. We'll start off with Turnpike since he's a guest. Woke or joke, what do you think about Turn 1? Do you think we can fix it? And if so, what would you want to do?
Okay, so we recorded the podcast today, and this was a topic that got brought up. So I think it's overall, I guess woke. I don't know. I'll have to pay a little bit more attention as we go throughout this game so I get a little bit better standing. But I think that it's such a compound issue. One, this track is not built for big stock cars. This track is built for Indy cars. So that road and that turn is quite narrow, much more narrow than you would preferably want for stock cars. Two, the drivers needed to race with some sort of respect. Going into a turn like that, you have to be willing to concede a position to brake so you don't clobber whoever's in front of you. And I think a lot of NASCAR guys just absolutely refuse to do that. That is a high-quality image in our background.
Yes, very high quality. Granite finger for you.
Yeah, just that in general of when you have hairpin turns like that with a lot of cars, there has to be a little bit of respect shown to everyone else. And when you are in a series that, of course, 9 times out of 10, it doesn't matter, that you don't have to respect the people around you. You don't have to be, kind of dance around it to make sure everyone gets through. You just nose in there, and what happens. It's not an easy way to fix it. It's either we get everyone learns how to actually drive a road course, because I feel like a lot of people just didn't know, or we try something else. I think it's savable, but it depends on if the drivers want to have it.
Yeah, I think I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to make this a 2-parter for myself. I think I'm woke for the design of the corner, because I feel like if you watch IndyCar races there, it really does promote wheel-to-wheel racing, through the first couple corners. But when you have guys on a double file restart that are going 8 wide in there, I feel like at what point that, of course, the track encourages that kind of thing happening, but at the same time, it shouldn't be happening to the level it's happening. Because you saw Logano. I mean, he literally didn't even turn. He just barreled over the curb and just took everybody out. And I feel like it's a woke on the standpoint of the idea of the track design, because it's a great passing zone for other types of race cars, but it's a joke based on how they're driving. And I feel like it's almost to the point where NASCAR can't handle some corners, and I think this is definitely a corner that they might not be able to handle.
Yeah, I would agree. There was just no respect shown to anybody.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if you got that, Colton, before you kind of lagged out, but our woker joke is just Indy Turn 1 in general.
Yeah. So as a Blaney fan, I have to say joke, because we had a top 3 car all fucking day and got trashed into the green, white checkered into Turn 1. I'm going to say joke for it. Woke, because I do like the circuit for not stock cars. I love it for anything open wheel, anything lightweight. I think it is a great track, great circuit. The only way that NASCAR can fix this is to not start the races and restart at the flag stand. If they restart closer down to road course Turn 1, you won't see guys build up that momentum to be able to cut down like that. That is the only way to fix this, because you still get that passing opportunity for green flag runs, and it would kind of neuter the ability to jump and pull a Logano on restarts. But other than that, I don't think there's any fixing it. You're just going to have to deal with it so long as we're racing at any road course that has a tight first turn like that.
So our next topic is another fairly controversial one. It's on the topic of the escape road. We titled our episode Access Road to Nowhere. So I kind of want to get your thoughts on how the access road impacts the racing, and what you think about whether or not the penalties given out for skipping the access road are fair or not, because I think that this is a really controversial topic. So I'm kind of interested to hear from you guys.
I went first last time. Take it, Colton. Colton, you got it. Go. You got this, Colton. Go ahead.
I think I'm here. You guys got me?
Yeah, you're up first. I went first last
time. So am I woke for how they handled it, or woke for the penalty?
Just woke for the access road in general. And like, what do you think about it? We just want to know what you think about everything access road.
Just the ability to have that, I'm super woke about it. The ability that guys have to just completely ditch a corner if they know they're not going to make it, love it. NASCAR absolutely should have done the same rule that they do with all sorts of chicanes, that if you miss it, you need to come to a complete stop. I don't know why that wasn't a rule before this weekend. I don't know why NASCAR didn't think that guys wouldn't just run straight off and take that cut. Denny Hamlin on DBC this week said he even had a braking zone figured out for that access point, that if he needed to, he just wasn't going to let off and then hit the brakes at a certain point to cut back in. As far as the penalty goes, 30 seconds was way too stiff of a penalty, in my opinion, because Ross definitely didn't gain 30 seconds. I don't even think he gained a second, maybe 2 seconds on that. So I feel like a 10-second penalty would have sufficed. But kudos to Ross for figuring out the loophole in the system.
Yeah, agreed. And Turnpike, now it's your turn, man.
Okay, I kind of agree. The concept of runoff roads, totally woke. I enjoy that. The part of it that is a joke is the turnoff road itself and NASCAR's handling of that. So my point, and I pointed this out in the podcast today, is when I think runoff road, the first one that comes to mind is turn 1 at Monza, with the bollards, and of course Seb just running right through them. So, excuse me. So what is beautiful about that is the bollards in that place. You got to bob and weave through them, and if you hit them, that's a penalty. So you got to bob and weave, and that takes off the time that you would have gained from cutting the corner. So you come out about where you would have if you hadn't missed it. So that is what my thing is about the runoff road being a joke. Is it's just a straight line back to the track, it was nothing but a positive. You probably should have taken that every lap at that point. But I'm also kind of disappointed in NASCAR's handling of it. I think from what I've heard, everyone looked at that rule and was like, hey, we might be able to get away with this. And Ross was the one that tried it. I mean, he has nothing to lose in that situation. He's already locked in the playoff, 2 wins. He's good. So it's worth it to try to, because if that sticks, that's big. I feel like that was a good trade-off for that. But people were using that all day. From what I've heard, people sitting there at turn 1 were saying that people were taking the access road quite a bit. So it's weird. If they would have handled it a little bit better and they would have penalized everyone that used it correctly, I would have been less mad about it. But since they only seem to care about one in the 3, I think Austin Dillon got one too. But for them only to penalize like 2 people for it, that's where I draw the line.
Yeah, I think I have to go joke with how NASCAR handled it, because I do think, like you mentioned with the Monza runoffs, it's kind of on the series for creating an access road that's faster than the actual racing surface. I know that F1, when they go to Russia, they have a super tight runoff area in turn 1, and people have actually crashed trying to go through that runoff area. But obviously, Alonso last year, he practiced going through that at full speed so that if he was pushed onto the outside, he could just shoot through that runoff road and not lose any ground, which, of course, he did. So kudos to him. And I think that I really don't blame Ross for trying it. It's just, like you said, he's got nothing to lose. There's nothing in the rule book really that said that he had to come to a full stop. So he didn't come out in the lead either. He came out in second in that corner. And he didn't take the lead until 2 corners later. I feel like that's the part that gets lost on people, is that he didn't take the lead from that access road. He just got around the carnage. Yep. He came out in second. And I think that that's sort of what needs to be looked at, is that by rule, he didn't necessarily gain too much from it. I think that NASCAR kind of just saw the optics of it and was like, oh my God, he cut the corner, So it's just a little bit confusing for me. I think that they need to be a little more consistent with chicane rules and access roads. I know that at the Roval they make you come to a full stop, but I mean, I wish they would just come up with a rule where it's like, however many spots you gained, you just let them by and you keep racing. If it's just you and one other car,
I would agree. Legal overtakes.
One will tell you, like, give back the position and then you can race.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy to think about, because it's always an officiating controversy with NASCAR. It just seems like they always shoot themselves in the foot. Like, there's never something simple with NASCAR.
No, I mean, it's insane how, like, the thing that comes to me is I do not understand who is up in the NASCAR officiating booth and what they are doing. First off, the thing that comes to my mind is I'm at the Daytona truck race. If they get back and take the white flag, the next flag ends it. There is a wreck like 200 feet from the start-finish line, and they managed to get a yellow thrown. Crazy. Immaculate caution. Then you get to, I forget where this was. Was this Las Vegas? Something like that. In the truck race, there was a truck stranded on the backstretch up against the wall for like 2 laps. Nothing happened. They didn't know. So it's just the weird inconsistencies with NASCAR just cannot have a consistent call for certain things. It's absurd. Sometimes a tire being loose on pit road is a caution. Sometimes a tire being loose on pit road isn't a caution. Sometimes it's a penalty. Sometimes it's not a penalty. It's insane.
Yeah.
It's just so weird to me.
Yep, I think they
What I
make
like about
everything-
Formula One, if it's a penalty,
Yeah.
it's always a penalty.
Yeah. I feel like there's some things that have to be ball and strike calls just by nature of the sport, you know? Like those caution calls at a super speedway on the last lap. I understand that that's ball and strike, you know? If a car
Yeah.
spins off to the apron and the pack is past them, then keep it green, or you know, or if the leader gets spun in front of the whole field, then of course it's going to be a caution. But like you said, not everything has to be a ball and strike. I mean, there are cut and dry rules that they're turning into ball and strikes just because they feel like it.
It's just weird. I feel like of my friends of my Formula One friends, I've tried to get into NASCAR. That's a big thing that they have had issues with: the playoff system and the inconsistencies.
Yeah.
Those are big things, and I am done letting NASCAR just get away with it. You know, I have great friends that have been getting interested in the sport, and then they've had to dip out because it's too much. It's just
it's a
weird,
shame.
man. It's just weird.
I mean, I've known a lot of NASCAR fans for most of my life that are a little bit into other motorsports, but you know, when I tell them, I'm like, man, these playoffs are really dumb. Like they don't necessarily like them, but they don't understand why I'm so critical of them. And I've told them, like, every karting track I go to or every person that I race against, out of all the people that I watch motorsports with or I race with, they will all say, okay, yeah, I watch F1, or yeah, I watch IndyCar. Yeah, I watch IMSA. But there's only a couple of them that watch NASCAR, and I'm one of those few. And it feels like all of the things that you named are reasons why they don't take it legitimately. Like they're like, well, I don't want to watch with the playoffs or whatever, or I don't want to watch with stage racing or whatever their gripe may be. It seems like they don't. It's hard for them to latch onto it because they're not like other motorsports. You know, they're not.
I would agree. You know, I've been a very vocal proponent of especially the playoffs. If there's anything that I would have changed is the playoffs. I made old PK Jared. I forced him to listen to me ramble about Formula One the other night. And that was one of the things I showed him was the Abu Dhabi finish last year and why that was so important, how you have a season-long playoff format and they come into the last race tied on points.
Yeah.
Of course, what happened. Yeah, it's a big deal. NASCAR is trying to manufacture that, and they do that every year, and it never works as beautifully as that did because that was naturally done.
Right. It's not special. I mean, I grew up watching.
No.
I'll be honest. I mean, the 10-race chase, as much as I don't like points resets, I would much rather have one 10-race chase than I would have like eliminations or rounds or whatever. Because I watched 2011 with the 10-race chase, and you had Stewart and Edwards not really going to the finale tied, but they left the finale tied. And I feel like that felt like I was watching something historic, you know, like it was supposed to be a once-in-a-lifetime deal. And now, if every year is designed to be 2011 or 1992 or whatever, it's not special anymore. Like, there's no luster to it. It doesn't feel like a.
Do you know why 1992 was special? Is because that was rare. That never happens. That did it on its own. That wasn't something, you know, that was built to be that way. That's just how it was. And that's what made it so special.
Yeah. I mean, I've always had a tough time trying to argue with some of my NASCAR only friends about why I don't like him. And I've always sort of reverted back to that argument of it's no longer special if you know it's going to happen, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It just doesn't.
Here's my Here's my kind of thought. So first thought is just destroying the playoffs entirely. Two, if you want to do something that kind of has some drama to it, my thought was, why don't you, after 2 or 3 races of when you consider to be like the countdown or whatever, you put the special banners and colors on the drivers that are mathematically eligible to win the championship. So if you are like, if there's, let's say we have 16 drivers, after 4 or 5 races, you'll start to notice that some of the guys in the back are probably now eliminated from championship threat. So they lose their banners, whatever. But what's cool is if they win a race, they get a good points day, that banner can come back. Yada, yada, yada. So you get down to the end, and maybe you've got 3 or 4 guys with 5 races left that they're the only ones with banners left. They're the only people mathematically eligible to still win the championship. And that's how you can tell exactly where they're at. And that takes all the stupid gimmicks out of it because it's just a visualizing of the points format. 2, my other thing is if you're married to the playoff format, at least have it be consistent. So if we're going to have the round of 16 as 3 races, the round of 12 is 3 races, and the round of 8 is 3 races, the championship 4 should be 3 races also. That's how I feel about it personally. I do not know. Or coincidentally, if this is the round of 8 and you win a race in the round of 8, you're locked into the championship 4. And if you win 2 races in the round of 8, that takes away a championship spot. So there's only 3.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
Interesting idea.
I feel like I didn't appreciate the 10 race chase while we still had it. I feel like as much as the points reset bothers me, just having one of them is fine because it seems like usually in the course of those 10 races, a lot of the guys who were good in the first 26 races usually still end up good at the end of the 10 race chase. I mean, there's obviously glaring exceptions, but it seems like that for the most part was more captivating to me because I didn't know what was going to happen. I could watch these 10 races and every one of them mattered. It's like, well, what if if it's race 3 of the chase and the guy second in points has a bad day or whatever. I enjoy watching the whole drama of how it played out and whether or not you're knowing, is this the end of this guy's championship hopes? And now it's like, you already know what's going to happen. It's like, okay, well, there's going to be 4 guys that are going to go and have a winner take all. And it's like, it loses that luster for me because it makes moments that are supposed to be special and unpredictable. It just makes them normal. And I've kind of become complacent to the point where as much as I love NASCAR and I'll always watch it, I don't put emphasis on the championship anymore. Like, sometimes if my driver makes the Final 4, if they win or not, I don't really care. Like,
yeah, that's true. I think people are starting to count championship 4 appearances more than championships.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point.
What I just had a thought. Where did that go? Don't you hate when that happens, when you have a great thought and then you wait 2 seconds and it just disappears out of your head?
I liked where you were headed with that championship 4 appearance thing because I think that I would weigh a lot on that because, there's not many guys who can make the Final 4 year in and year out. It seems like there's only a few guys that have had chances to do that. And it seemed like, there's 3 or 4 guys over the last, 7 or 8 years that have been able to do it almost every year. And I feel like those guys, to me, I would rather say that I was in the Final 4 5 times and never won over being in there one time and winning it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. My dad had a good point. I'd like to hear your opinion on this, and Colton in the comments, is my dad thought that if the championship 4 is going to be what it is, whoever wins the regular season points should have an instant lock in the championship 4. What do you think about that?
Ooh. That's interesting.
If you win the regular season points championship, you deserve to be, or maybe at least a guaranteed round of 8. I don't know.
I think, that's pretty fair to me. Yeah. Like I don't know where I would go with this because I feel like it's hard to advocate fairness in a system that doesn't encourage fairness. So I feel like
that is very
NASCAR
true.
Probably thrives over the idea of, a guy who was like 25th in points all year winning the title. Like they probably thrive on that idea. They want it to happen.
They thrive on giving championships to people that don't deserve it.
Yeah.
It's absurd to me.
It's crazy, right?
Matt Crafton won a championship without ever winning a race. Last year, Truex had it, and the only reason Kyle Larson won is because he had a good pit stop. Imagine having one of the most dominant NASCAR seasons ever, and NASCAR puts you in a situation where you have to have a good pit stop to win the championship.
Yeah, I think it's mad.
It's absurd.
Yeah, and like I've said earlier, I'm a Hamlin fan, and I will be completely honest with you. If he won the title in 2014, which he very nearly did if it wasn't for a bad pit call, that would probably be like I would not really feel good about that. Like It wouldn't feel right to me because he was pretty mediocre all season and just snuck into the Final Four. And it could happen this year too. I mean, he's sitting 20th in points with, Lord knows how many DNFs. If he wins the title this year, it's not really going to be super special to me, even as a Hamlin fan, because it seems like it's just like he kind of just got there on attrition, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's weird to me. The another why is this happening? I'm having all my good thoughts leave my head. Oh, the biggest thing that I dislike, and this is my point in the championships, is just how little it matters and how much luck can play into a championship. I like it when a driver has a dominant season and they lock that championship with 3 or 4 races left, because it's safe. They're not going to get screwed out of that. If you are dominant enough to win a championship with 4 races left in the season, you're not going to tell me you didn't deserve it. There ain't no way you're going to convince me they did not deserve that championship. Now, if you would have locked up the championship, what year was it? Was it last year where Larson would have had the championship wrapped up whenever, or the year before when Kevin Harvick would have had it wrapped up like within the round of 8, he would have won the championship. No one would have been able to catch him. What is that? Like, that is such a insane concept to me. Now,
my problem with NASCAR things.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Is if I was in NASCAR, let's say me and you are racing in NASCAR. It's just me versus you, and I win 35 of the 36 races. I am crazy. I've won 35 straight races, and you're the other driver in the championship 4, and I finish second in the last race, and you finish first. You win the championship. I could win 35 races and DNF the last one and not win the championship.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's mad to me.
Is that just not absurd? Am I the only one that thinks it's absurd?
It is absurd. I think that, like many drivers have said, if you put a whole season down to one race, it's almost inherently luck based in terms of your whole season being pinned off of one race. I mean, like you said, you could be leading that race, running away with it, and you have a tire go down or you have an engine failure or anything like that. It just doesn't seem fair to me, because I think NASCAR in their fan base has lost what a championship should mean. I think what NASCAR's in their TV mind has had in their brains this whole time, they thought that, championship needs to be entertaining. But I've always thought that I think the racing product is supposed to be the entertainment. And then if you're lucky, the championship may also be entertaining. It's not supposed to be entertaining every single year, but when it is entertaining, it's super special to watch.
Yeah. My analogy with this, and I don't know if this will make sense to anybody, but it almost reminds me of, imagine the NBA Finals. Imagine this is the NBA Finals. Okay. So you go through the bracket, and the best team in the NBA history, the Milwaukee Bucks, not biased, are just dominating or whatever. So we make it to the finals, and it's what's your favorite? Do you have a favorite basketball team?
Not really. No, I'm kind of a casual.
Okay.
Thing. I don't really
okay. So we'll just, for instance, we'll just say the Golden State Warriors. So it's me versus y'all, and let's say you guys are up by like an absurd amount. You guys are up like 40 points. We can't do nothing. We're struggling. Yeah. You guys are dominating. And imagine it gets to the 4th quarter, and as soon as the 4th quarter ticks over, the points just go back. They reset to 0. All right. All that lead, all that advantage that you've built up is just now gone. Sorry. It's whatever. It's like a football game where the only touchdowns that matter are the ones in the 4th quarter. You set the you set the score back to 0. Yeah.
You're like, okay, well, here's mandatory overtime. Like, it doesn't matter if you're not tied.
Exactly.
It's mandatory overtime.
Mandatory overtime, first score wins, and it's being like 44-0, and we get a lucky pick 6 and run it back, and then we win the championship off that. Like, it's just so backwards. It is so backwards.
Yeah, and I feel like we've ranted about this long enough to where everyone on the podcast knows where we stand. We've joked about this before last year that all of our podcasts, no matter who's on them, turn into a playoff rant, and we've just continued that tradition.
I hate it. I cannot stand it.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, we'll rant about that some more probably in the future. But for now, back to the Indy Road Course Circus. I I want you to get your thoughts again on the circus that was the last couple of restarts. It seemed like there was just, I mean, there were cars spinning left and right, and the only reason they stopped is because they had to throw a caution for Austin Dillon being completely beached in the gravel. So I want to know, like, where do you stand in terms of how these guys drive on a late restart?
Terrible. That was some of the most boneheaded driving I have ever seen in my life. Like I said, to race on a race course like that, you have to drive with some kind of respect and common decency towards the people around you. And they just flat out refuse to do that. If I dive bomb 4 people and all of them wreck, but I get 4 positions, then that's good. And I think that's the NASCAR way of take, give nothing. You know, how many times have we seen it in, Formula, whatever, where you're in a bad spot on a corner, so you give that corner away because you're going to set yourself up for the next straightaway or whatever. They just do not understand that concept. And if you look through all the incidents, most of the people that were involved were people that we do not consider road course ringers. These were mid-pack guys, bottom-pack guys that I just don't think are good at driving road courses. So I do not know. I thought it was embarrassing. And it's a big problem. I think that people are just like, well, his track sucks. It's like, no, his track is pretty good. Could it be better for stock cars? Yes. That first turn does not lend itself to stock cars. But you're putting it too much of the blame on the track and not enough blame on Bozo going 6 wide, trying to make it fit into a 1 wide corner. I mean, you can disagree with me all you want. That is going to be my stance.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd have to agree with you on that part. I think that it's not a terrible track. Yes, it can be better, but there has to be better ways to race on a late race restart. I think somebody on DBC said this, and they said respect doesn't pay playoff points. And as sad as that is, yep. They're right. And I don't necessarily like it, but they are right in the sense that everything that NASCAR is doing right now, they want that to happen. And they're sacrificing the actual racing product for the good of quote unquote entertainment or just demolition derbies. And don't get me wrong, I don't mind demolition derbies a few times a year when they're organic. Like Daytona or Talladega, that's an organic demolition derby. Like, you don't know what's going to happen, but it's just like there's good tracks that don't need to be like this, and they always end up being like this, especially the road courses, because whenever there's a late caution, whatever's happening gets completely erased, and it turns into a mess. And there's a point where entertainment needs to take a back seat to the racing product, and I think that they're having an identity crisis of where, do we want the purists to have fun, or do we want people to just enjoy the chaos going on?
Well, here's the thing is you can make both of those people happy at the same time. Yeah. You can make the purists and the people that are in it for a good show happy at the same time. Purists like good racing, and good racing is naturally entertaining to people that are casuals. That's just the nature of it. So really, I have 2 points with this. One, I think that somehow NASCAR playoffs are to blame for this. Like you said, driving with respect does not equal playoff points. Oh, excuse me. I keep burping. I don't know what's going on. And
it's definitely. Go ahead.
People right now, the only way that somebody is going to get in is winning. You have to win a race. So that is going to, kind of put the dog in the corner. You're going to start getting desperate, and you're going to start reaching for things that normally you wouldn't have to. A big example of this that I use of playing it smart is the last lap of the Indy 500. You've got Marcus Ericsson, bless up, Indy 500 champion. And then you've got Pato P2. Pato comes in to turn 1 with a big run, but he's slightly too far up the track. Now, he could have held it flat out, and he probably would have went up and hit the wall. But he is for his age especially, Pato is an incredibly mature driver. Him and Alex Palou are the same. They are extraordinarily smart, and they know how to play the game. So instead of holding it in there and just saying, heck it, we'll see what happens, Pato backs out. that costs him the
Yeah.
race. That loses so much momentum, but he backs out,
Yeah.
so he does not bend that car. He takes P2.
It's a
I mean,
double points
that
race.
is
I feel like that's a big thing.
racing
Why
with
that
respect. Absolutely. That move made me a incredible Pato fan. I thought that was a big-brained move.
As much as I try to be respectful, if it's last lap of the Indy 500 and I'm on the outside side by side, I don't even think I'd have done that. Like, I don't think I've had the willpower to back out. Like, I would have just stayed in it and see what happens. Like, I don't think as much as I try to be respectful. Yeah, I'm like, this is my only chance. I have to do it because if I lift, then I don't get the momentum to try again.
Yeah. And that is that is an incredibly mature move because your brain and your adrenaline would be going so big, like Indy 500, and that's all you're going to think about. That you wouldn't have the space mind to be like, whoa, if I stick on this line, I'm going to DNF the car.
Yeah,
I thought that was an incredible move from him. So
yeah, I think what played into it is that I heard that if he finishes fourth, then he has the FIA super license. So I think he knew that if he DNF'd that race, a double points race nonetheless, that would have really hurt his chances at having an FIA super license.
Oh, without a doubt. Because, what's up, Coop Daddy? He knows that. And, I mean, you got to do what's best for you. Indy 500 win would be cool, but is it worth DNFing your car when you can take a P2 with a double points finish? I don't think so, personally.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So,
it's a tough balance, and I think that's the fun part with NASCAR. Obviously, we got into it. And speaking of the balance of playoffs and respect, we've got 2 spots still up for grabs in the playoffs because the guys that are second in points in Ryan Blaney and fourth in points in Martin Truex Jr. both don't have wins. So if 2 random people in the top 30 can win, that means 2 of the top 5 drivers in the point standings would miss the playoffs. So I want to get some of your thoughts as to what's going to happen over these 4 races that lead up to the playoffs.
I just think it shows how broken the system is that Ryan Blaney can be sitting P2 in regular season points. He's only 125 points behind Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott's been on a tear, dude. Holy crap. But he's only 125 points behind him in the regular season standings, and he might miss the playoffs because he hasn't won a race. What world is that okay?
As a Hamlin fan right now, I'm actually rooting for him to break the system just to highlight how broken it is because he's sitting 22 points. And let's just say he goes out and he wins Darlington. Then let's just say he DNFs the next 2 round of 16 races. And then you go to the round of 12. He wins Texas. He DNFs the next round of 12 races. And then once he gets to the round of 8, he wins at Homestead or Vegas. And then he DNFs the other 2 round of 8 races. And then he goes to Phoenix. He runs 4th the entire day. And then he gets a green white checker. He has fresh tires. He wins the title. So he could basically have 4 wins in the playoffs and 6 DNFs and be like 20th in points all season long. And he could pretty much hack his way to a title. So I'm kind of interested to see if that can happen.
Theoretically, you could win the Daytona 500, DNF the rest of the regular season and make it. I mean,
as long as
you
could
stage
points,
win the Daytona 500.
30.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, it's such a stupid system just in general.
Yeah.
But
you know what I would enjoy?
I don't know. It's just so conflicting.
You know what I would really enjoy? I would enjoy seeing somebody like, let's just say Truex, there's 2 new winners and Truex and Blaney get bumped out of the playoffs, and then they both win 5 races each in the playoffs. Like, how do you think that would go over? Like, if they win all 10 playoff races.
That would be just egg on their face. That would just be a massive egg on NASCAR's face. Even though they tend to do that themselves a lot of times. NASCAR's biggest enemy is NASCAR. True story. But how many times have we seen in other motorsports where someone will get hot at the right time near the end of the season and they will claw their way back into the championship and win it? In this format, let's say Kevin Harvick gets eliminated from the playoffs, and then he has 4 or 5 wins. Yeah. It's just sorry. Too bad you're not in the playoffs. because of an arbitrary number that we made up, you don't get to win the championship, even though you would now be leading the champ. It's just weird to me, man.
I've always been interested in that because I feel like eventually that will happen to the point where somebody that misses the playoffs ends up going on an absolute tear just because they didn't win a race.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand people like to bring up Tony Stewart's 2006 as a rebuttal to my argument, but the difference with that is a win would not lock Tony in on the championship based on points. He had to go out there and be in the top 10 at points to make the chase, and he didn't do that. So I understand him missing the chase because he didn't do well enough in consistency all season to get there. But to imagine if he was second in points like Blaney is, but he gets kicked out because he didn't win. That's completely different.
It's just absurd. It's just absurd.
Yeah, so in terms of Harvick and Truex, if we don't have any new winners, that's the battle for points on the last two spots. One of those guys is in, one of those guys is out. Do you think that even if he's down 97 or however many points he's down after last week, do you think Harvick could theoretically claw his way back to pass Truex in points in a span of 4 races, 97-point swing? Like, do you think that's possible?
Honestly, no. I don't think. I mean, of course, anything can happen. I mean, he could go on a tear. Truex could have some DNFs. That is fine. But speaking about Harvick, I picked him on RSO Picks one time, and let me find this. So this was the stats about New Hampshire. This is what comes up to me. Is going into New Hampshire, Kevin Harvick was still in a pretty sizable hole. Let's see if I can find the exact numbers because I really do not want to goof this up. One moment. If NASCAR just didn't post 6 million photos every 2 days, that would be really cool. Let's see. I don't see it. Okay, I'll just try my best to sum it up since it is apparently not on the NASCAR Instagram. So, Kevin Harvick went in to the race like 76 points back or something like that. He goes in, he has a great day, finishes top 5 and is now 96 points back. It's out of his control at that point. Imagine just any sort of sport being out of your control whether or not you win. The really only thing I think about this that comes to mind is EPL soccer, English Premier League, where it's season-long points. So for me to win the championship, if I am behind you by 3 points, whoever I played it, that's the only thing I kind of think of when I think that. But no, he ran a perfect race and ended up worse than he started because Christopher Bell won.
Yeah, I think you're right in that sense. I mean, as much as I think he could get it if he does well, he's so far back to where his destiny is no longer in his hands unless he wins. Like, he literally has to win a race. There's no other option for him at this point. So it is pretty sad because I've always respected Harvick. So I feel like him missing the playoffs for the first time in forever, that's going to be pretty sad. But he's
real quick.
His back's against the wall at this point.
Yeah. So let's play a fun game. Me and you right now. It's called Can This Driver Win a Race? Can this driver that is out of the playoffs, do you see this driver being able to win a race? Okay, so I'm going to go currently 17th. We have Kevin Harvick. Can you foresee Kevin Harvick winning a race?
Oh, this is really hard. I think that as of right now, their average running pace, it's not enough for me to say that they're going to win a race. This is just on skill. I mean, I'm not factoring in luck or all that crazy stuff. I'm just saying on pure pace. I think that they did show some speed at Pocono, but I don't think that they're in a position to where they're not going to beat the Toyotas on a big track. They're not going to beat the 2 of the 400 cars on a big track, and they're probably not going to beat at least one of the Trackhouse cars. So it's looking pretty unlikely for Harvick.
Okay, so let's make it easy, and let's look at drivers or whatever. Can you see this driver being able to win a race?
Yeah, you actually beat us to it because on our outline we had a quote that said, "New winners who, and who do you think can open up playoff spots by winning?"
Do you want me to stop? We can come back to this, or do you want to
No,
just finish
no,
that?
go ahead, because we were going to get into that and who we thought could win races and get into the playoffs and kind of be that wild card guy. So I think you're kind of beating us to the punch. I think we should definitely keep going along this line with some more drivers.
All right, next on the list, Eric Amarola ran super good at Talladega and Daytona, is a super speedway winner. Won it, last year, did win at New Hampshire. Do you foresee, just let's not talk about like cars or whatever. Let's just talk about the driver, just Eric Amarola. He's done it before. Can he win the race? Yeah. Can he win a race? Okay, 43 of Eric Jones.
Yes.
Yeah.
Daytona, yes.
Easy.
Anywhere else, probably not.
Okay. 43
Jones,
of Eric Jones was leading at the white lap, at the white flag at Talladega.
He's another one. Yeah, he could win Daytona too. And I wouldn't even count him out for the other 3 races because he did have a good car at Pocono. I mean, he was running along with the 11 and the 18 for a good chunk of that middle portion of the race, and they finished 1-2. So I think he could go out there and snag Michigan if they nail it and they have some sort of miraculous upset. But like you said, Daytona's probably the one real chance for him.
Yep. Bubba Wallace, Talladega winner, second Daytona 500.
I honestly, there was one guy that I had pegged as my playoff, like my ultimate grid spoiler. It was him because I think he's shown the last couple of weeks it's not just super speedways anymore. I mean, he's good on mile and a halves. He was good at Loudon. He even stole a top 5 on a road course. So I think, of course, he's going to be a real threat at Daytona. But even if he doesn't make the playoffs, I could see him running top 5 in playoff races as a non-playoff car because he was super good at the mile and a halves earlier this season. And I think that he'll probably have some speed this week in Michigan too. So I definitely have high hopes for him. If there's anybody that I can see getting a win that's below the cut line, like he would be where I place my bet.
Yeah. The 3 of Austin Dillon, Daytona 500 champion.
At this point, I'm just going to go. He's Daytona only. Like I don't have hope from anywhere else.
Okay. Yeah. You don't have to have super strong answers to this. This is just quick.
Yeah.
Justin Haley has won at Daytona before, and I think won 4 or 5 super speedways in Xfinity. So he can super speedway race.
As good of a chance as anybody is with an upset.
Chris Buescher finished P2 at Sonoma.
Oh yeah, he's got
shown speed.
Yeah, I mean he caught on fire at Indy and he still came back for like a top 10. So
yep.
I mean he could definitely win a road course and he's good at Daytona too. I mean he's always seemed to be in the mix for Daytona races.
People seem to forget that he won his dual race early this year.
Yeah,
I know because
Logano obviously kind of just blocked himself and gave Buescher a win.
Stenhouse winning a super speedway because I sure as heck can.
Yeah, I can see it. He was up front in the 500 late in the race, and he was first on the outside line, which was like 4th or 5th at the time, and he got spun head on into the wall. So if nothing happens, absolutely.
Cole Custer is probably the first guy I'm like, I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, he's an okay road racer, but I don't see him running well enough at the Glen to actually win a race on merit. I mean, even with Daytona, I don't really see that either. So,
Michael McDowell.
He can absolutely go out there and win Daytona. He can even win a road course too. He can win the Glen.
Okay. Harrison Burton.
Nah, probably not. He's going to need an extraordinary amount of luck.
Yeah. I feel the same way. Todd Gilliland.
Again, I mean, I like Todd Gilliland, but he's in that same boat as Burton he needs tons of luck.
Yep. Okay. I'm gonna fire out this next one. And I'm sure that if Joe is still in the chat, Joe Retro will have something to say about this. There is no way you're going to not agree with me that Brad Keselowski can 100% win a race. Brad Keselowski could 100% win a race.
For sure.
Oh, I'm not like a Brad super fan.
Yeah.
But there is a reason that Brad Keselowski is Brad Keselowski. You can never rule out Brad. Just facts. That's just how it is.
Mhm.
And then Ty Dillon.
Like I said, I don't
really
see
don't
it, but
foresee
I
Ty
think he can
Dillon.
easily
Yeah.
do it because I
Yeah.
think he was really good in the 500, but he just kind of lost track position toward the end, and that really, really cost him. So I think if he can stay up front for the whole race, then he's probably going to be a man on a mission.
Yeah. I mean, if he's got a win to get in, we know that Brad can be aggressive and he can get in there and make stuff happen. So never count out Brad.
Yeah. And here's a fun one. We were going to get to this one. Out of the guys that are in the playoffs but aren't in on wins, do you think Blaney or Truex are more likely to win?
I'm going to take Blaney personally.
Ooh,
He's had such a good year. I just feel like I could see him, at least with Truex. I just don't think he's been as close to wins. Like, he's been consistently up there, but he hasn't been like on the verge of winning one like Ryan Blaney has. I would not be surprised. Yeah, Drew brings up a great point that Truex at Richmond, that could be he is.
Yeah,
he's
that's what I was thinking for sure, because he was leading the race, or he was either second, or he wasn't leading behind Byron. He was second before the tire strategy they were on just didn't work out, and I think that he was good at Loudon too. Things didn't work out. I don't think he had the outright fastest car, but he still led a ton of laps there, and I think he's always run in the top 10. It's just a matter of if he can start having that serious speed to where he can just go out there and control his own destiny, then I could see it happening at Richmond. I think Michigan, I don't even think that's out of the question for him, because the Toyotas have been lights out on the big tracks. Anything over 1.5 miles, it just seems like Toyota has the best stuff.
Oh, I agree with that. I would have to agree with that. But yeah, if I would have to take any kind of bets, like on who I think would be in, personally, I think that we could see Brad pull some magic at Daytona, or I've picked Jones to win this weekend. So I would like to see him get in because he's had a great car. He's had a great year.
Yeah.
But if I had to take any guesses, I would say it'd either be, if I was putting money on it, I would be betting on Bubba, Eric, or Brad, personally.
Yeah. If I had to pick my favorite cars that are outside the cut line, I would probably start with Bubba. And then I think Eric Jones, like you said, and I think this is a crazy one, but I have no choice but to do something wild here. And I'm going to say Corey LaJoie has as good a shot at anybody at Daytona, because he was up front in both the Atlanta races. He was up front in the Code 0400 last year on the last lap, but he got shuffled out. So I think that's another one that could be crazy. I don't even know if he's top 30 in points, but he could definitely go out and win a super speedway.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, look at him in Atlanta. He had that race won pretty much. So
yeah.
Of course, things changed in the last lap, and that's the crazy thing about super speedways is if you can manage to part the waters, if there's a big oopsie on the last lap, you can win. So, yeah, Drew says it.
Yeah, he said it best. But anyways, now that we've gotten through that, we want to get into the Kurt Busch story, because it just came out today that Kurt Busch is still not cleared to race. So how soon do you think he's going to come back, if at all? Like, do you think that he could theoretically fall out of the playoffs entirely if he doesn't race? Like, if he doesn't race by the time the playoff starts, do you think he could fall out?
Yes. And that hurts me, because I've never been a Kurt Busch fan until the last couple, until at least this season. I have never been a Kurt guy, but he's really grown on me the last year or so. And I've been like actually rooting for Kurt. So this kind of hurts. But I think NASCAR needs to look. I'm sure they are, but they have got to look into why this hit has done this much damage to Kurt.
Yeah, yes.
I mean, that concussion must be very severe. I think, and you can probably back me up on this, is I think it shows a lot about safety. And as much as we hate it, I kind of enjoy when cars can crumple to take a hit instead of just, just hitting and being like, well, the car can still race. But then that comes at the expense of your driver. So Kurt backs it into the wall at Pocono. That's a 25 G hit. I'm fairly certain. 25 Gs. Max Verstappen's hit at Silverstone last year was 52 Gs. And he was fine. Of course, different situation. He hit tires. That's different. His car crumples. Kurt's doesn't. It just radiates through Kurt's car.
Yeah.
But
it was sad.
They got to look into this. But if he doesn't come back this season, I mean, what an absolute blow for Kurt. That would be devastating for him.
That would
I'd
hurt
be sad for him.
Yeah, that would probably be the end of his career if he doesn't come back.
Yeah, I would have to agree. It might be Tyler Reddick next year if they can buy him out of his contract.
If they can buy him out of the contract, then for sure.
Or as much as I hate to say it, I mean, maybe they bring Ty Gibbs up for a year if they can't get Reddick out of that contract, and then maybe the next year. I just don't know the whole situation, because all of this kind of has to do with Kyle Busch and that situation too. Just Toyota in general. Toyota needs about 3 more cars than they have. But like, I really want Ty to go to the 18, but I don't want Kyle Busch is my favorite driver. So I don't want Kyle to leave the 18. I'm in this weird spot where what I want is exactly what I don't want at the same time. But yeah, with the Kurt situation, I'm just devastated for the dude. I'm devastated for 2311. I'm happy for Ty Gibbs that he gets, good, seat time and whatever.
Yeah.
But it's just quite insane.
Yeah, I mean, it's sad, and it sucks to see it, because this is a guy that he's run so many races and would have ran them all consecutively if it wasn't for the whole legal issues that he went through in 2015. And
yeah,
it's unfortunate to watch, because it seems like these issues, I mean, you remember with Dale Jr., ever since he kind of opened everybody up to how bad concussions can be, I've sort of had that thought in the back of my mind every time someone gets one now, because you think about it and it's like, well, I don't want that to happen to Kurt. Or, there's deaths out there that, like, I know Leroy Yarborough was a big one. I know that people have even connected, Eric McClure and John West Townley's deaths to their head injuries. And I think that, as sad as it is, it's good that he's just accepting the protocol. He's not really trying to fight it, because these head injuries, that's the scary part about them. You don't know what their effects are going to be long term, and I think the last thing that you would want is to have him messed up for life.
Oh yeah, 100%. That would be such a blow for him.
Yeah,
it's hard to talk about. Like, I just words don't easily come to mind for like what I should say in this situation. What the correct line of thinking for this is. It's like if I'm like, yeah, I hope Kurt takes time away and he heals, but like, I also have to think, like, is that the Ty Gibbs fan in me being like, oh, I love Ty getting seat time, because then that's messed up too. So it's just kind of a difficult situation to talk about, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's sad, because I want to see him come back, and I want to see Kurt get a true send off, but I don't want it to come at the expense of his long-term health. I don't want him to have head injuries that just alter the rest of his life, because it's happened to so many guys, and there aren't as many in racing, but yes, it does happen in other sports. So I think that I don't need that to happen to him. I would rather have him, if this is how it ends and it saves his life, then I'll take it.
Yeah. That's the silver lining. Is I'll leave it at this. Whatever is the best outcome for Kurt is what I want to happen. Whatever Kurt wants, whatever Kurt feels is right, whatever him and his family feels right. No matter what, I want Kurt to have the decision on this and do what's best for him.
Yeah, I think if he wants to come back, I am happy with him coming back. But if he doesn't want to come back, then I completely respect that. As much as I'll miss him, I still respect that decision. Yeah. I think you got to respect guys' decisions to hang it up on their own terms. I mean, I was sad when, say, Nico Rosberg left F1, but I respected it at the same time, because that was what he wanted to do. He did what was best for himself. Yeah,
and it's even harder when something like that happens at like the prime of your career or whatever.
Yeah, like he's doing great.
I mean, the
44 or whatever.
Yeah, the two that come to mind to me being a football fan is Andrew Luck and Luke Kuechly. Two
Oh
guys
yeah,
that
those are big
struggled with
names.
injuries and brain injuries that
Mhm.
in the two of the best players in the league
Yeah,
retired early because of health concerns. I
yeah.
mean, and
I
that's
think
never going to
that
make it any easier, but
no.
that's what comes to mind of you have to prioritize yourself, man. Get in there, make all the
Mhm.
money you can and get out before you're messed up. Provide for your family
Yeah,
and get out.
yeah. I mean, it's sad, but at some point it has to be done. Especially, Kurt Busch he's older, he's settling down. I mean, I don't think that at this point in his life he's not going to find it worth risking his livelihood or his long term health just to run 10 more races or whatever.
No, I wouldn't do that.
No, I mean
I
there are
wouldn't
some
do
that
that.
would, but he's definitely not one of them.
Yeah. And I would feel like, I mean, end of the story is it's his choice. If he chooses to do that, I
Yeah,
don't think, I mean, who's going to stop him? But
right.
it wouldn't be easy. If he does decide to come back, if something happens and they're like, hey, we don't think you should race again, at least let him go out and start in Park Phoenix at minimum. That's all I'm asking.
Hmm.
I just hate that as soon as I grow to like him, this happens. So
Yeah, I think one thing that Hamlin said really stuck out to me is that if Kurt wants a desk job at 2311, he's going to have a desk job. If he wants to drive, he'll always have a car. So I think
yeah,
either way he decides to go, he's going to have some sort of role in NASCAR. He's going to have some sort of thing that continues his career regardless.
yeah. Well, people think, and I don't know how much of this I'm allowed to say because I don't know how much of this is public knowledge.
Mhm.
But Kurt's main job in 2311 was not to go out and win. His
Uh-huh.
main job has been to mentor Bubba and help build that program.
Yeah. Like their
Um,
whole team needs
I
building.
have I have friends in the executive offices of the Charlotte Hornets that are, of course, also owned
Hmm.
by Michael Jordan, and
Hmm.
they say that is a big reason. And there was many conversations had where they thought that Bubba wasn't performing up to standard, and they thought, well, he needs some help. He needs some advice. He needs a veteran leader to get in there and help him. And I think that has paid
Yeah, it's
off.
working like crazy
It is
because
successful. Yes.
right. I think the thing with Bubba that really stuck out to me is he always had raw ability, but he didn't seem to be able to maximize it. There were things that he needed to do better. And now that you have
Yeah.
somebody that can kind of show him how to do that, he's starting to get what he should be. He's getting the results that he should be getting.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that 2311 is in a great spot right now. And I'm excited. I'm excited for what the future holds. That is a absolutely true comment. Everywhere
Mhm.
that Kurt has went, he has helped. Whether that is, I think, Stuart Haas. I think they were already. I mean, there were Stuart Haas when he went there, but he won
Mhm.
quite a bit. I think the night race and the 500 come to mind. You've got
Yeah.
him at Chip Ganassi. He was good to at least win you one race a year, at least
Yeah, and
one a year.
that was good for Ganassi. Like that's not always normal for
Yeah,
them.
I'm not a Ganassi guy in NASCAR,
Right.
but
Right. I mean,
he's
they're
done
all
nothing but be a positive.
hmm.
Nothing but be a positive.
Yeah, he's always had the ability to drive a car. He always has, but I think now it's sort of he's always had the intelligence as well, but he's developed a way to communicate effectively and not just have meltdowns about it like he used to. So I think that his
Yeah.
knowledge is actually being put to work. It's not just being expressed.
Oh yeah, I agree with that 100%. And yeah, it makes me sad to know that he's in this situation right now. But I could see him moving into an administrative role with 2311. I doubt it's going to be a quote unquote desk job. And if it is a
Right.
quote unquote desk job, he means like big desk job, like private
Yeah.
office upstairs desk job. So
Yeah, I think I could see him commentating too because he's done the truck races on Fox and he does a really good job.
he's good at it. He's pretty good at
Yeah,
it.
I would like seeing him
Little fun
broadcast for
fact.
trucks.
Yeah, little fun fact about me is I'm also a race commentator, and I think that a lot of the commentators that we have in NASCAR races are pretty garbage. No offense, but if you're looking, I don't know why they are continually trying to only have commentators that are drivers. I think it'd be nice if you went and got actual commentators whose job is commentating. But in the times that Kurt has done it, also Austin Dillon has been pretty good at it too. I thought Joey Logano has been really good at it. So there might be a future for those guys doing that. But yeah, I could definitely see him choosing to commentate because I think he and Joey Logano especially, I think are better than a good section of NASCAR commentators currently.
Agreed. Yeah, I'd agree. I think, there's a few that are really good, but I think those guys are probably toward the top, even if they were compared to the current broadcasters or analysts or whatever.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't think anyone in NASCAR can hold a candle to David Croft. Called Crofty. that is the Formula One commentator, best commentator in the world, in my opinion. But it's interesting. Anybody that can bring lively commentary to NASCAR, about it. I'm about it, man.
Yeah, I think there's a great balance. The thing I love so much about some of the analysts like Dale Jr. is that even though he's not like a color commentator, he's still really good at. He brings energy, but he's still he brings a lot of knowledge that he teaches because he's recent. He's driven the cars recently, so I think a lot of his information is relevant. I think there comes a point where some of the drivers that were say 70 or 80 years old, as much as they know about NASCAR, their information is a little bit more dated. It's not to say that they don't know anything about it. It's just it's harder for them to be able to relate to what the current drivers or the current cars are experiencing because of that.
Yeah, I think that there is a big difference between the lead commentator, your play-by-play guy, and a insightful guy. Dale Jr.'s cool at that because he's Dale Jr. and he be good at talking. That's just how he is. So I enjoy that, but I think we need about 5 more Mike Joys than we have.
Yeah, and I guess now that we've kind of gone through our commentary soapbox, if you will, our last part of the day is about playoff points, and what we want to go through is some of these guys are sitting on some odd numbers of playoff points. Let's just start with Chase Elliott. He's on a roll. He's got 40 playoff points as they run, and everybody else doesn't have, no one else has more than 22 if you were to rack them up now. So what do you think about Elliott's hopes, and do you think he's just a shoo-in at this point for the Final Four?
He's a shoo-in, I would think. But of course, none of that matters because it's not about how good you are. It's about how lucky you get. So, 40 playoff points is a lot. It means you're locked into the playoffs. It can go away quick. It don't matter. We saw Harvick in 2020.
He had 60, didn't he?
He had a lot. But yeah, it means nothing. I hate to be that guy again, but it means absolutely nothing.
I think it helps for getting through the first couple rounds that are just fluff if you're one of the favorites. But once you get to the round of 8, you're not going to be able to just coast off of them.
Nope.
You gotta perform or get lucky too, because that's a big part of it.
And Chase Elliott will get that bonus for regular season points championship, I think.
Yeah, that's even more.
I think there's a bonus.
That's 15 points, I believe. And then the top 10 each get a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see some of these guys. There's a lot of guys that are sitting on similar numbers of playoff points. So I feel like, you've got Logano 16, Byron 15, Blaney 15. Larson and Truex would be at 14 apiece. Even though Truex doesn't have a win, he still had a lot of stage wins. And then,
neither does Blaney.
Hamlin and Reddick are on 12. I think Bell is on 11. This is just based off of the grid look today.
Briscoe has 8. Suarez has 7. Kurt has 7. And Bowman has 6. Cindric has 6.
I think this year is going to be, personally, it's going to be more like the years of this format before there were stages and playoff points, to where it was just a complete crapshoot because nobody started with an advantage. I feel like the guys behind Elliott are so close on playoff points to where they're all going to be going into these rounds dead even. So I think that I think it's very fair to say that at least 1 or 2 of the big favorites is going to be gone because they might have 1 bad race or 2 bad races in the round of 12 or whatever, and they're gone. because they don't have a buffer over everybody else because everyone has the same number of points.
Yeah. I am a Bowman and Busch fan. Those are my two guys in the Cup Series. And it's kind of dawning on me that I could see both my guys get eliminated pretty early.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
Bowman
a Hamlin
second,
fan, and even
second to
though he's got 2
last.
wins, like, I'm not looking very hopeful for Hamlin's playoffs right now. I feel like he could be out in the round of 16 for all I know.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just
crazy.
If you look at previous years, I think some of the drivers kind of hinted at this in press conferences. They said that, there were always 3 or 4 guys that hogged all the playoff points and they could kind of just coast through the rounds. You look at 2020 where even though Harvick didn't make it, he still had a bunch. Hamlin and Harvick were kind of just the playoffs were a relatively easy road for them until they reached the round of 8 because they kind of hogged all the playoff points. And you look at let's just say 2018 as well. Like Harvick and Busch were kind of locks because they would just coast through the rounds because of playoff points. Or Truex was another one that was almost a shoo-in on playoff points. And now if you've got one guy that might be a shoo-in and everybody else is just on even ground, it's going to be crazy. I mean, it's going to look a lot more like the years before playoff points.
Yeah, that's fair. I wish that just for 1 year they'd be like, hey, you know what? We don't actually need the playoffs this season.
Yeah,
I would love. This has been so awesome. I would have loved to have seen if this was a fair fight. It's not a fair fight. I would love to see this as a fair fight. Personally,
yeah, because
I think most people would. Honestly,
the points battles are nuts.
Yeah, that will be interesting. Like Chad says, the ends of the rounds will be very close. I think you're talking about a couple positions between each driver might make the difference between advancing and not advancing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's going to be crazy because all these guys are going to be fighting for points. And, there might be 5 or 6 guys that are separated by a couple points. It won't be – usually every cutoff race always has some drama where there's 2 guys that are, like, super close on points. But, it's going to be wild. Especially I think Bristol is going to be a complete circus. I think the Roval probably has the most potential of any race to be just a circus because Talladega is right before that, and there's probably going to be several guys that have a bad day or a DNF at Talladega, and that kind of shakes everything up going into the Roval. So I'm thinking that'll be the nuttiest race of the year.
All right, I need to talk smack on Bristol for a second. Have you ever been to a race at Bristol?
No, I have not.
Okay. So, weird thing about Bristol is they do not show you. I don't know if this is normal or not, but Bristol's the closest track to me. I don't know if you can tell, like, if I have an accent or whatever, but I'm from the South. Bristol does not show the points battle on the massive Colossus TV they have. So when I was there in person, I was having to text my friend at home to watch on TV to tell me who was in and who was out.
That is nuts.
It's like of course, I was like rooting for Byron and Bowman, and I was texting my friend like, did they make it? And after we left, we had to turn on NASCAR radio to be able to listen to hear if they made it or not.
Yeah,
couldn't
that's
tell
a
in
real
the stands.
problem.
Wild.
I mean,
stupid.
I don't
we have the woke or joke. It was a joke.
Yeah,
joke.
Definitely.
As
someone that goes to Daytona every year for the Coke 0400, I don't like. I never noticed that until you said that, and I don't think the Jumbotrons have live playoff picture points as they run.
Why?
But the one thing is, it's a cutoff race, so it's like it's Daytona, so like it's such a crapshoot to where anyone can win, and points aren't really a big deal. But I feel like it's such a bad thing for people that go to the races because they need to be able to follow this stuff.
Yeah, it was brutal. I was texting my buddy like, who is in? Who is in? And of course, we stopped thinking about it for a second because it was that Elliott Harvick fiasco. So, but wild. Yeah, it was just super weird of like trying to figure out like who is in, who is out.
Yeah, and I think Alex's dad brings up a good point is that some of these feeds they don't always use the broadcast for television. I know Daytona does. They use the NBC picture and everything, but they eliminate the commentary and they have a different ticker. That's basically it. But they still use the same camera angles and all that stuff. And they also don't have commercials, which is a big thing because they solely feed off the trackside cameras. So, and they use MRN commentary. So I feel like fans at the track at Daytona get a really nice picture of what's going on in terms of point situations and who gets a pit road penalty or whoever. But at a place like Bristol, you can't even hear the commentators because there's a car coming around every single second. They're all spread out and it's a small track. So you kind of have to have it all shown on the screen.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm friends with Mark Garrow, who is the lead commentator for PRN, and it's funny because I'm at the races and I text him afterwards. I was like, "Hey, Mark, hope you did good. Couldn't hear you the whole time. Just like I can't hear him.
I mean, I can't relate because
it's kind of weird. It's kind of wild. Yeah, in Bristol,
it's someone that goes to Daytona. It's easy because the cars when they're all packed up, whenever they all go by, they usually they're on the backstretch for like a good half of the lap, so you can hear for like half the lap. You know, you can have a conversation with someone next to you, but if you go to Bristol or whatever, you probably can't do that.
Yep, very true, very true. It's not great. I know that got us off topic, but I just had to bring that up.
Yeah, but
let me know
like,
while I'm at the racetrack who is in. Let me know. I want to know.
Yeah, they've got to find a way. I mean, it's like such an enormous screen with 4 different sides, and it's like, come on now, like you got to have that points bubble ticker.
Yep. Or at least let me. I don't know. Follow it on my phone, but of course I can't do that because the track Wi-Fi doesn't work, and there's no cell phone reception. So, oopsie.
Yeah, that's another big
I don't
point.
know.
Cell reception.
Maybe they're trying to force you into buying scanners and listening to the broadcast. I don't know. It's just weird.
Yeah, because I'm really mad about the cell reception thing because I don't really spend time on my phone at a race very much to begin with. Like I really only look at my phone during cautions and stage breaks. Like I'll send out a text or I'll check to see if my driver got a penalty or whatever. But I don't spend a lot of time on my phone. But when I do, it's really annoying because I literally cannot send out a text or whatever. And at the 500 this year, one of my friends had driven all the way down from like Virginia to take photographs for his company. You know, he was taking pictures and all that stuff, and he was in the infield, and I was sending him texts and whatnot during the race because we're both fans of the same driver. And it was kind of annoying because I sent him a text after Hamlin got taken out of the 500, and it literally didn't send until the race was over. So,
oh yeah,
it's just really frustrating because it feels like a Stone Age type problem that we shouldn't have.
Yeah, it is very weird. I don't know if they do that on purpose or if it's just a coincidence that every NASCAR track has the worst cell reception ever.
Yeah, it's even Daytona, like it's a world-class facility, but man, they got to step it up with phone reception.
I think they do it on purpose. They have to. Also, when you have that many people in one area, that's a big thing. Is when you have that many people in one area, it's going to overload your cell towers. They can't handle that many people. So that's just kind of how it is. Yeah, Chad says they do. I think they might. I think that, and I think it kind of also naturally does that because of cell phone tower overload. I mean, that is a thing that happens. They can only process so many bits of info at a time. But it's wild. Like to get it fixed, though.
Yeah, and I think that brings us back to our point in the playoffs. Do you think we're going to see any changes for the top 10 in points and like who gets what out of, there's 4 races left. What do you think is going to happen in terms of the favorites? Like, do you think Chase Elliott's going to grab another couple of wins and just boost the lead? Or do you think that maybe we're going to see like let's just throw a name out there and say like Christopher Bell. Let's just say maybe he can get another win or what do you think is going to happen in terms of the heavy hitters?
I think that the top is probably going to stay relatively the same because I think that people are going to be less likely to take risks personally. So I don't see, I say that Ross Chastain definitely will.
But
he's your people like Byron, Logano sometimes Logano, Chase Elliott. Those guys, I think they're going to play it safe. Kevin Harvick, those guys are probably going to play it safe because they're already locked in. It's the Cindrics, Bowmans, and the first guys out that I expect to be racing real hard and taking pretty swing and a miss, because they're fighting for a playoff spot. Because hey, I don't know if you know, but some people's season is going to be over in 4 weeks, and you don't want it to be you, because every race after that doesn't matter.
I feel like the end of Daytona
wild.
might be the craziest race of the year so far.
I think
Like,
that
they're
we
not
will
gonna
see
make it
some
around
absolute
Leonard.
bonehead moves.
Oh yeah,
No.
yeah. And
I think we're gonna see.
I'm gonna enjoy it in the stands just for the pure chaos. And I honestly though, I wish it would enter green because I feel like there is a 100% chance that the race is gonna end under caution. Like they're gonna just wad up on the last lap.
Oh yeah.
So I'm kind of interested to see what happens, and I feel like so far that we've had a crazy playoff picture, and I think that it has the potential to get a lot crazier. I mean, what's to say that we don't have 16 winners already in the playoffs, and we have a 17th winner at Daytona, and then we get to the point of which one of these 17 guys is lowest in points, and we kick somebody out. But I feel like Kurt Busch is kind of the obvious example now because he's kind of just sitting duck with all the races he's missed.
Well, I mean, technically, he's still third from the bottom. Of course, Cindric and Bowman, I do not know.
Like who out of the winners could theoretically drop below him?
Below Kurt, or drop out of the playoffs?
Like those guys, they could, like, if there's a new winner, let's just say, I haven't really looked at the point standings tonight, but if there's a new winner that's ahead of Kurt in points, and Kurt say misses another 1 or 2 races, they could in their 17 winners, they could theoretically bump him out if they're higher in points.
Yeah, I mean the easy one is like Blaney or whatever. I mean, if I see Blaney getting a win, that's where it becomes weird, because technically Kurt has more playoff points, but like Cindric is still actively racing. Yeah, Blaney would have more points, but like, would you get rid? I mean, you can't get rid of Kurt until I guess you can. So even though he's not racing right now,
would they just do it based on?
Do they go off?
I think that's
what they do it based off playoff points.
So like if I don't know. Somebody, like if Blaney and Kurt, if there's 17 winners and Blaney and Kurt are 2 of them, I feel like Blaney would get the last spot just because he's higher up in regular season points. And after the regular season finale, he would get a bonus for being second in points that would like really outweigh whatever Kurt has.
Yeah, they get like 10 points too. I agree. Yeah, they get a pretty good little boost there. I don't know. It's something that I will be very excited to watch going forward, because I'm not exactly certain on how this is going to play out. Of course, every week has been different. I mean, we've got Michigan this week. There could be a shock winner this week. I hope it's Eric Jones. So
that would be cool.
Yeah.
But,
that's how I feel about it. It's just going to be it's going to sit back and watch.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I think that's the fun part about it. As much as I hate the playoffs, I will have fun watching to see what happens in terms of who gets in, who doesn't. It's been a wild season so far. It's been a wild night on this podcast. And, I think before we kind of settle down and get off, first of all, Colton and I really want to thank Turnpike for coming on, because Alex and Jared weren't able to come on tonight due to commitments, and Colton had technical difficulties. So it was really important to have somebody step up, because without you, we probably wouldn't have had to have an episode tonight.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm
really
pretty happy I got to come on. So
yeah. And before we get off, like I said, thanks to Turnpike, thanks to everybody who watched us, and we hope that you can give us a like, give us a follow on our social media pages. We do Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We have a YouTube channel that uploads all of our old episodes. So just give us all a follow, give Turnpike a follow. We want engagement, and I feel like every little bit helps. So we appreciate everybody who watched, everybody who liked. It's really important for us to be able to talk to fans about racing. And I think that we don't do this for clout. We just do this to have fun. And for all the people that tune in with us and have fun with us, it's a really big deal for us. And I think looking into this fall, we're going to have a great time. So we hope to see you next week. And thanks for tuning in.